I want people to see my pain so they make the right decisions, and decisions that I didn't know that I was making were wrong.
A mother sharing her grief to help protect your kids and grandkids.
Our Carter Coyle investigated and found more than 100 local home daycares have not gotten training required by law. And one mom says the consequences of that can be heartbreaking.
She was one of those babies that literally woke up smiling. We were so excited. We were having a girl. You know, the first thing my husband said was, well, she can't wear a bikini till she's 30. Typical dad.
It's bittersweet for Catherine Martin to talk about her first baby, Kelly Wren.
She completed our family, and I didn't know what I was missing until I had her.
Now she's missing her little girl every day. This is the last picture she took of Kelly Wren at 3.5 months old. She died in her crib at daycare 3 years ago. Greenville investigators found 23 children in Pamela Wood's house in Greenville. State law says the home daycare should have had 6 kids at the most. The coroner said Kelly Wren suffocated because of unsafe bedding.
I grieve for myself, but I also grieve for my son, because he will never know her and will never get to know the experiences that we had and how amazing she was.
Pamela Wood eventually pled guilty to child neglect, violating home daycare laws, and obstructing justice. She got 18 months house arrest.
It makes me sad that the state is still struggling.
Ever since, Catherine has pushed for stricter laws in South Carolina when it comes to home daycares and what training should be required of caretakers.
Is it not important? I mean, how many times do we have to go to Columbia? This baby died, this baby died, this baby died.
In 2010, South Carolina passed Kendra's law, requiring all home daycare workers to get 2 hours of training every year. That was in honor of Kendra Gaddy, shaken so badly by her convicted daycare provider, she has permanent brain damage. DSS now puts alerts like this on a provider's online profile, showing whether or not they've taken the 2-hour training required by Kendra's law. I checked about 200 local home daycare profiles on the DSS website. I found out in Charleston County, only 9 out of 60 providers, that's 15%, have a green alert saying they are up to date on the 2-hour training. Other counties had only slightly better numbers. 34% of Dorchester home daycare providers have taken the required 2-hour training, 39% in Berkeley, Georgetown's at 38%, Colleton 30%, in Williamsburg, 6 providers have taken the training, about 17%.
Check means in-home center, and they've done their 2 hours.
I showed Catherine these numbers.
I mean, this is important. I don't understand why people aren't doing it.
I was astonished.
Dr. Carol Sawecki is the executive director of the D. Norton Children's Advocacy Center, downtown Charleston.
So many of the trainings are already really important, so it's a little bit discouraging.
She also thinks the courses offered could be stronger. CPR is an option, but not required. She'd like daycare providers to take classes about child abuse prevention and mandated reporting.
Really understand what are the red flags for abuse, what happens if I call, and knowing that they, as a child care provider, are mandated to report that.
I've been keeping kids since she was a year.
Diane Broughton owns a registered home daycare in Mount Pleasant, and she's been taking care of kids for 40 years.
All my kids are like family, even the parents.
Her daughter Jody works with her, and instead of just taking the 2-hour training, she took a 26-hour optional online course.
And I mainly did it in the evening, you know, and stuff, so. Plus it was free, that was an added bonus.
But Diane herself hasn't taken the required 2-hour training yet this year.
Why haven't you had your training?
Well, the challenge with me is getting out during the week. They don't really have a lot of weekend courses to take. So I don't want to close my daycare because my parents need to work.
Diane says she knows it is the law, and she's decided to take the online course out of convenience, even though it's more hours than required.
The training is good. It's just you need to have the availability to get to the places to do it.
The Department of Social Services tells me training compliance is low because they can remind centers to do the hours, but they currently don't have enforcement power to shut them down for not following Kendra's law, no matter how long their training is overdue.
There's no repercussions for it.
Catherine helped change that. Effective this July, a new law allows DSS to withdraw registration status if the operator doesn't get their training. The new law also increases required annual training from 2 to 10 hours. That brings us more in line with neighboring states like Georgia and Florida. North Carolina requires 12 hours every year. Virginia requires 10 if the daycare takes subsidies. Kentucky requires 9 to 15 hours. But Catherine still wonders, if so few providers are getting 2 hours of training, will they complete 10?
If you don't comply with Kendra's law within the year's time, you should be fined every month. I mean, if people start losing money, they're going to start getting in those classes.
Parents can check daycare violations online, see if training is complete, and ask for background checks.
People always say, you know, I can't imagine losing my child. Well, if you don't take the precautions, you could be like me. And it's absolutely devastating.
I'm still waiting on data for a Freedom of Information Act request I filed with DSS for 7 years of training records so I can see how long this has been going on. I also will post on our website how you can check your child care provider for violations and training records.
The local